The referee's a podcast with Jack and Kelly too. Scottish Championship class, they give us the show. Footy tales from the pitch, controversies they scratch. Every moment they'll itch, no call left to batch.
Here we go again. We're back. The Referee's a Podcast, Season 2. We're back again, consecutive weeks. Carrying on as we left off last year, the most consistent podcast, if you exclude the summer months. Hello, Jack Curry. How are you today?
I'm very, very well, Cameron Smith. It's very exciting to be back. You know, as you said, new surroundings for a new season. I hope you all enjoyed episode 1 and the new look. Be sure to let us know how it went down and what you thought of all the changes. How's it been with you, Cam, though? You know, what do you make of all these changes? You know, settling in quite nicely with doing the video as well as the podcast.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, the first one was easy enough. As long as we keep our expectations down and our quality and production value down, then I'm having a great time. It's as soon as questions start to be asked of, why don't you do something and make the sound better or the video better or add in cool things and stuff, that's when I'll start to maybe question my choices here. But for the time being, so all I'm doing is hitting the record button and then we're doing our usual spiel as normal. So excellent stuff as usual then, Jack Curry.
Absolutely, and there's only 1 week, Cam. This is what I'm most excited about. There's 1 round of fixtures to go,
yeah,
and then it's league action.
Nice.
It's like the proper stuff begins, and that's really exciting.
Nice.
You know what I mean? It feels
That's
as
good.
though the break's not been that long, and I'm already ready for the football to be back properly. You know, league action to kick off. It's why we're all here, isn't it? And it's been interesting for some of our sides in League Cup action. Some are getting on well, some not so well. So it's definitely been interesting.
Yeah, there's definitely been a few, but I suppose there's always a few, isn't there, of the championship teams who don't do so well and don't make it through the group stages, which is fine. It's it makes this cup slightly more interesting, I suppose, because you can get some lower division teams sort of making it a wee bit further, so it is nice for that. Obviously, it's not been a fantastic one for Queen's Park. I'm sure we'll touch on that. There's some games to look at, but Mr. Curry, what are we going to jump off the diving board with to start with this week? What are you thinking?
So am I right in saying we're going to analyse some fixtures, preview the last round of games, and then get talking a wee bit about some general clubs? So let's kick off on Saturday, and we'll just go alphabetically through the group. Looks as if it's Ross County, Cam, our first team here to talk about, and a really, really interesting one to talk about, Ross County, to begin with, because
Yes,
they've picked up the win here away to Queen of the South, after a comprehensive victory against Edinburgh City before. But let's not forget, they drew and then subsequently lost on penalties against Stranraer in the first game.
it's true. Yeah.
So, not being the start by Ross County that everybody expected, but they are slowly but surely picking up some form, and a strong win away to Queen of the South, even though they're division below, is certainly nothing to be sniffed at. I think Jay Henderson, I can see they're scoring the goal. I mean, we've seen his influence last season. Yeah. He's going to terrorise Championship defences once again, isn't he?
Yes, I think so. It's unfortunate that obviously he's went back to his parent his parent club, and we still have to play him. So that's fun, even actually just in a better team. So like you say, a wee bit of a stumble for them already in the League Cup group, but it still looks obviously not a certainty, but it still looks pretty likely that it will be Ross County emerging from the group alongside yourselves. So no harm, no foul as it looks at the moment. They're not going to be hindered too much by that and likely to make it through. I can't remember the exact rules of this cup. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's what I was going to say.
All top teams and then like the top 4 second place teams or something like that.
Yeah, so it's all the top teams, and then I'm sure I seen the other day it's the top 3 second teams that go through. So I think you're probably looking at something like 9 or 10 points as a second place team to be enough to go through as a second place finish. I'm sure there was a couple of teams, or one team at least last season, that finished on 9 points and didn't get through.
Right.
So it's one of those for my side. Thistle, when we're talking about the same group as Ross County, we play each other in the final game up in Dingwall. If Ross County were to win that match, they would obviously go first on 10 points, where you would expect 9 to be enough to take Thistle through in second, but it basically means going into this last game that Thistle just need a draw,
Yeah.
and whatever happened in the penalty shootout would be enough to see us finish first and automatically go through, and that would potentially leave Ross County on 8 or 9 points. So, no guarantees for either Thistle or Ross County that they're through at this stage, despite, a perfect start from Thistle.
Yes, yeah, good start, and like you say, obviously a big game up their way, isn't it, this weekend, to settle that group, and also potentially deciding who's. I've always thought that was weird that you only get the few second place teams. Like you say, just 3 as well. It just seems like a bit strange. I know obviously they changed the format of the cup to make it this pre-season, not tournaments. I suppose it is more of a sort of tournament. Start to the season, keeps things interesting. But they certainly just seem to roll a dice and randomly pull rules out of the book for this one, didn't they, in terms of their qualification? And if it's a draw, it just goes straight to penalties, and if you win the penalties you get 2 points, but if you lose the penalties you just get the 1 point for the draw. It's just whatever they were on that day, I want some.
I must say though, I actually do like the fact that there's no extra time.
Yeah.
I like the fact that there's
yeah.
just straight to penalties. I'm not saying I would want extra time to be scrapped in every competition. I think there's a question to be had about scrapping extra time in every competition.
Yeah.
But I think in this, it's just, when it's July in the League Cup, we don't need players playing an extra half hour. So I think for once, common sense has prevailed with the extra penalties thing. I mean, a question I was going to ask you, Cam, was how much weight do you put on these League Cup games? When we're talking about, Ross County, for example, they've just came down from the Premiership. How much can we judge a 1-0 win away to a team in League One at this stage of the season? How much weight do you put on a result like that?
I think you put as much weight on that as you do on a regular cup upset any year. Like, it would maybe be different if the pre-season tournament was the SPFL Trust Trophy. The McDonald's Mickey Mouse Diddy Cup, because it would be less important. But this is the League Cup, so although it's like a pre-season tournament cup, it does lead into what is the second biggest domestic cup. Not that there's a crazy amount of cups or anything like that, but it's the League Cup. It's one of the big two. So there's certainly something to be said of, maybe better teams playing, some of their younger and lesser players in order to get them some game time. It's, a cup game against a lower league opposition, but, it's still important. So, everyone will be ideally looking to go out and win every game. Obviously, it's football, but teams are looking to progress. It's not just it's just the pre-season tournament. It doesn't matter too much. Like it does. So I think all the teams that are not looking likely to go through, they'll be looking and wondering where it's all gone wrong.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And sticking with the fixtures on Saturday, Cam, we had our first look at 2 championship sides playing each other, which is always really, really interesting. Ayr United taking on Arbroath down at Somerset Park, and this one was extremely comprehensive. I think we're going to get on later in the episode when we talk about the midweek games that have just happened now about an extremely comprehensive win for Arbroath, but this time they were on the end of a heavy defeat. Curtis Main, George Oakley, and I think it was Jude Bonner, a youngster that Ayr have got in from Celtic, I think it is, coming up with the goal scorers. We've seen some really strong additions to Ayr United squad this season. They've lost a couple of players as well, but 4-0 against a Titan in the same league, you really can't knock that at this stage of the year season, can you?
No, it's a fantastic win. I think you've maybe got to imagine, at least partially expected, being Ayr United, like you say, improved themselves really well over the summer, but they were already a good team coming the end of last year, if not a bit inconsistent. Obviously, Arbroath just come up, made some good signings and stuff, but they are going to be a little bit off of Ayr United, you would have had to have thought. So, that is comprehensive, though, a 4-0 victory. So, a tough one for Arbroath to take there, but I think anyone going to Somerset throughout this season is probably going to have a tough time. They do have a good wee team available to them. Scott Brown down in there, so yeah, it's a scary one looking at it. Are they going to potentially push the boat out and go beyond their third place this year? Ooh, maybe, probably not, but certainly in the conversation.
It certainly has to be in the conversation, Cam. As another season with Scott Brown, you can say another season of stability, another season for him to learn from his mistakes, which there have been, and try and take Ayr United to that next level. They've had a perfect start as well in this cup competition, 3 wins from 3, and I think they take on Premiership St Mirren, just like Bristol have got their hardest opponent in the last game as well. So it's going to be an interesting one to see where Ayr United are a side that are stronger than them when they've come dispatched of sides that you would almost expect them to beat.
Yeah, definitely. And looking at St Mirren, I know obviously we don't discuss too much teams in other divisions, but obviously St Mirren did just absolutely demolish Annan 8-2 on the same day that Ayr United got that 4-0 victory. So I think maybe prior to that result, the Ayr United players coming off the pitch, patting each other in the back. Oh, nice one, boys, 4-0. What a victory. We really did it. We can still win this group. Oh, what was the St Mirren score? Oh, it was 8-2. Oh, fuck.
Yeah. Well, you'd think they'd be joking at that stage, like if somebody's like, tell us the actual score. And then you're like, no, it was 8-2.
It was
so
8-2.
it's like, you would definitely have hate to have been an Annan fan at that stage.
No, definitely not. And I'm just seeing something that I didn't think was allowed. The 2 goals were scored by a trialist for Annan. I didn't think trialists could play in what is a competitive match. Yeah.
Interesting. Now maybe that's like one of the new rules for the League Cup or something, because I don't think trialists can play in the league, can they?
They cannot. No, they certainly can't.
No.
And they can't play in the Scottish Cup, and I was under the impression not the League Cup either. I don't even think they could play in the SPFL Trust Trophy. But I don't
there you go,
know the
that's
legitimacy.
a new one on me. Yeah, but certainly an interesting one. But Ayr United red hot form to start off with, and they are one to watch, Cam. Because they've been there and thereabouts the last couple of seasons. So
third place,
we certainly can't rule them out.
They are.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's hard to look past them again for third place this year, realistically, with Ross County and St Johnstone. Not 100%, but fairly likely to be, circling around the first and second places in the league. So Ayr United, obviously it's not the week for predictions. That's going to be next week, Curry?
Yeah, next week indeed. It's coming up quick.
Boom. Fucking predictions. That's what bit I'm missing. You talked about it at the top of the podcast. Missing the season and stuff like that. I'm missing the podcast predictions. That's it's exciting.
That'll be good to get that back. That's exciting, and I bet you everybody at home who plays along can't wait for it as well.
Yeah,
and tally our points and stuff. So
we're going to be better this year. We're going to be, fantastic and really close, and it's going to be.
It was unbelievably close last year. How it came down to literally one game. It was
close between us, but I mean, our predictions are going to be close to what it actually is, rather than it being wrong all the time.
Yeah, well, that's true. We'll just infinitely improve.
Our predictions, we just need to be a bit more psychic and just think about it a bit more.
Yeah, just assertive in it and going for it and just knowing it's like we know this league.
You've got to visualise it and then it'll happen, you see.
Exactly. And one man that's visualising success, Cam, is Neil Lennon.
Oh, yes.
Coming away from Dumbarton with a 4-0 win, the side that Queen's Park have raided for all their best players this summer. Yeah. So perhaps no surprise to see Dumbarton coming off the back of a heavy defeat. But what do you make of Dunfermline? They obviously came away from Tynecastle with a defeat. There's no shame in that. But followed that up with a couple of wins, and 4-0 away from home is just about as strong as it could be.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly can't shake a stick at that, can you? 4-0 victory, taking it away from home. Yes, Dumbarton have had their financial issues. Yes, they have been thoroughly savaged by Queen's Park and other teams as well. They're I was going to say they're basically a new team, but I think they have actually phoenixed, have they not? They have liquidated and reformed as part of the new ownership project at Dumbarton. So it is a brand new team, and Dunfermline, all they've done there is they've scalped a team that didn't exist 2 weeks ago. So well done to Dunfermline, 4-0. It's certainly put a smile on the fans' faces, I suppose.
Yeah, no, absolutely would be. And again, I think as we sort of spoke about last week, Dunfermline will just be one of those sides where we'll need to judge them as the season progresses, because it's really just a big question mark for me just now. And
Yeah.
obviously we said that getting that win away from home certainly impressive. So Dunfermline fans, let us know how you're feeling. But another side, Cam, that got an impressive win away from home on the Saturday was St Johnstone, coming away from Inverness with a 1-0 victory. Obviously you spoke about Dumbarton's financial issues. Obviously Inverness has been a wee bit more high profile than that even. But I think it looks like Inverness's ship has been steadied ever so slightly.
I think they're fine now, yeah.
Yeah, they could be on course for a decent season. So St Johnstone coming away from the Highlands with a win has ensured that they've started the cup campaign with 3 wins from 3, and we'll get on to another one of their results in a wee bit as well. But just what do you make of that? And quite an impressive victory for St Johnstone.
Yeah, well, it's always a tough place to go, isn't it, Inverness? Sad not to have it on the championship calendar anymore. Actually, that away trip up there was always a good one. And St Johnstone were cutting it close, 90th minute goal, in order to get that 1-0 victory, 3 points taken back there. But it looks like Inverness done their best, held off as long as possible, but didn't quite manage to hold off long enough to keep out St Johnstone there, and conceding that goal right at the death and losing the points there. That is likely to hurt them in their quest to potentially progress out of their group, unfortunately. But St Johnstone, you've got to imagine, and they're going to do well there. So unfortunate for Inverness, nice for St Johnstone, but you've got to imagine that the boys in St Johnstone probably wanted a little bit more than that. They wanted to show off to still a lower league opposition than them, and give a wee bit of motivation and confidence. Not that they didn't get that, but they certainly would have been hoping for another goal or two.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose it's got a similar situation to Ross County playing in Queen of the South away. Coming down from the Premiership, playing a team in League One, coming away with a 1-0 victory. It's like, could be better, but you can't really criticise them at this stage of the season at all. So coming away with a clean sheet and a win, certainly not to be sniffed at. And come back to some of these teams just in a wee bit, Cam, but I'm conscious of time in this week's episode as well, and takes us on to covering some Tuesday games. And there's only one place to start, and that's Queen's Park.
Yes.
Away to Falkirk.
Yes.
Group A. It's been an interesting start to the cup campaigns for yourself. A couple of losses in there, but obviously a victory at home there too. Falkirk in the league last season, no surprise, up in the Premiership, some familiar faces getting on the score sheet there for them. What do you make of the result, Cam, and the action of what you've seen?
Yeah, it was okay. Obviously, as we know, Falkirk are a good team. You've got to imagine they're only going to be better now than they were last year. And they were obviously tough cookies last year to really do anything against. So we started off, positively. Not on top of possession, but still looking dangerous, moving the ball, getting it forward. Obviously, Josh Fowler scoring fourth goal in 3 games in the League Cup so far. So, lovely for him. And a few minutes after that, Seb Drozd, the hero that he is, should have scored. Absolutely skied it, should have scored to go 2-0 up. Which obviously you got to potentially look into, maybe switching the tide of the game a little bit. Not necessarily, but a second goal in quick succession. This is before the 20-minute mark. It could have been enough to shake them a wee bit, but obviously what instead happened was equalised, and then we've gone behind, switched off, a little bit in both instances, which is always sort of possible when you're playing against a really good team. You know, they can punish you so quickly, and that is just sort of what happened. And then Seb again, while we're this time trailing 2-1, he's through on goal, and again should have at the very least got a shot on target, and just drags it wide, and you know it's two opportunities that he probably should have scored and could have very well changed the outcome of the game, you know, in a few ways. So hopefully he gets a wee bit of confidence soon, and you can see there's a player there. If he can start putting these opportunities away, there's a player there. If he continues to struggle to put them away, you've got to start asking the question mark is, how long do we wait, and what do we need to do to get him scoring? Not that that's necessarily his game. He did put an absolutely fucking phenomenal ball into the box, and I don't know if it was just, I don't know how, it was like right on Josh Fowler, and I don't know if it's maybe just been, it was awfully quick, but it was like a good pace, you know. Someone just needed to get a wee touch on that, and it could have been a goal. But you know, it is what it is. We'll take the positives from it. We didn't play too poorly, switched off a few times, but you know, Josh Fowler looks to be a good player, so that's something to take away.
Yeah, he looks to be a great addition. You know, as he's scored in every competitive game that he's played so far for
and
you.
Some of the
know.
friendlies as well. He's put some away in there, so you know he certainly has an eye for goal, which is just mighty nice. Very pleased about that.
Yeah, certainly, and you know, goal scoring, you know, was one of the issues that you were suffering, especially in the sort of second half of last season. So, you know, if you can find a consistent goal scorer like you do have, it's always going to give you a chance in matches. And you know, you touched on Seb Gross there. He was the man, obviously, that scored the goal at Ibrox, and you do just feel as if he can be a wee bit more consistent, he would be a massive player for Queen's Park.
Definitely, no, he's got skill. You know, he can take on players and stuff. But I think sometimes he holds on to the ball a bit too much, and his shot is a bit, you know, much to be desired. I think, I don't know if he just he maybe needs to think less about it and just sort of work on instinct and maybe go for it a wee bit more. But we'll see. It's a long season, so hopefully against you know, some of the teams that we've played more consistently, can sort of get a bit of a rhythm and learn how to play against certain players and stuff like that, and maybe that will work out better. But you know, more to come from him. But you know, fairly pleased with the pre-season overall, even though we're not likely to progress. I think we've managed to, you know, work the legs and, you know, get everyone playing together, which is nice.
Yeah, no, definitely. And what did you make of Falkirk out of interest? You know, obviously they were in the league last season. Have you kind of noticed a wee step up from them as they've went into the Premiership?
Well, not really, but I'll preface that by saying all last season we described Falkirk as being a step above everyone else, sort of thing. And I think they are still that step above, but with a few extra players. It's like when they came up into the Championship, they didn't really need to do much to their team because their team was already too good. I think it's similar again. We've not needed to do much because they already have a great team. So it's just the team that was really tough to beat last year with a few additions. So as to be expected, I think, really, they were obviously a good football team and played some good stuff. They're just so quick, much quicker than any other Championship team, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be interesting to see how they do get on in the Premiership this season, and you know, keep a wee eye on them. And if there's any Falkirk fans still listening and stuck with us, we very much appreciate that as well. But you know, it's going to be interesting now for Queen's Park. If you've got one more game left to play,
yes,
in the cup before action's out.
Cove home on Saturday. I'm sure it's Saturday. So I don't think it matters. I think that will be out anyway.
You're already out. By the looks of it, you know, Cove sitting 7 points, you're 4 behind. So no matter what happens, it's just a fresh run out, and it's an opportunity maybe for the manager at Queen's Park to try something a bit different. You know, and see if any other tactics or formations are going to work before you head into the new season.
Yeah, certainly. Knowing that it means nothing means that, like you say, you can change it up a wee bit, or you can use it to, you know, solidify the mechanics a wee bit. And you know, these are the bits I liked. Let's put it all together, and we'll go out and, you know, have our way against Cove. So fingers crossed that's the way it goes, and we'll be going to that. So hopefully a nice wee one to. You know, just before we kick off into the proper season, and see what it's all about, really. I think next up as well, we've got one of your games, the game against Queen of the South. 2-0 victory
Yeah,
there. Walk us through it.
one that I mean, it's been disappointing for myself with the Thistle match has fallen on Friday, Tuesday. It's just meant that I've been unable to
Yeah.
go, which has been extremely disappointing and frustrating. But I've been sort of having to just watch the highlights and sort of keep a track of people's comments on the game. And seeing the highlights, it did look like from the offset like we were dominating, and that was the message that I heard from everybody. It was an extremely impressive Thistle performance,
Yeah.
especially in the first half, and I feel as though that probably continued into the second half. Just a couple of more goals just weren't added on, but absolutely fantastic to see. We've got the new boy getting on the score sheet. Let's Sosa. We'll go with. I'm not going to try and pronounce
Yeah.
that again, but guys like Fitzpatrick in the highlights seeming like he's sort of finally stepping up, and the experience of Tony Watt, as I've already touched upon, I think is a fantastic signing, especially for Thistle and specifically what we need.
Mm-hmm.
I think so often we speak about transfers and signings and players and forget about the role that they play at a club as well as what they're maybe doing on or off the pitch, and the role that I think Tony Watt's going to play at the club with the youngsters that we've got and his experience. And I think from just what I've seen, there's that hunger and desire there to still go and prove a point in his career, and that's something that we really need to focus on and harness in on. So 3 wins from 3 in the League Cup group stage, you can't really ask for much better than that. Taking on Queen of the South at home, would be a game that you'd expect Thistle to win, but you still need to go out and do it. And too many times before, we've seen Thistle come up stuck in matches that we certainly should win, and especially at Firhill. So, without getting overly excited, I think it's a really good time to be a Thistle fan.
Yeah.
It's interesting seeing Mark Wilson, taking the helm and really taking the reins and going for it. So heading into this match this weekend, away to Ross County, it's the group decider. The winner takes all, if you like. But the fact that we've got the insurance policy of a draw and we're through, can't ask for any more than that, Kim.
No, that's pretty good, mate. And I do just want you and any potential listeners and watchers to just remember those comments that Jack Curry's just made about how positive it is and how much he's looking forward to it for when the next time Partick Thistle lose 3 games in a row and everyone's shouting about how this guy has no idea what he's doing and he's creating a horrible atmosphere at the club and no one thinks that anyone can do anything and this guy has to go. So when that viewpoint inevitably comes out, a little bit into the season, once Partick Thistle have lost 3 games on the row, then I want everyone to just bring that back up to Mr. Curry there, because it's always fun and nice to hear you talking so positively there, Jack Curry. But you guys flip flop your opinions faster than anyone else I've ever seen.
We're a big club, Cam. There's high,
Got
there's
to
high,
win.
there's high expectations at Thistle. I think there's an element of understanding just now that I think the board have been pretty open and
Right.
honest to a certain extent at Thistle in terms of saying, there isn't a lot of money. We are struggling. We haven't to, be creative, use a lot of youngsters. So I think there's a lot of understanding from the Thistle fans just now. But as you said, Cam, that only goes so far. And I think when you give people a taste of a winning team, and you give people a winning start, I've seen a lot of the comments, and you can only judge so much off of social media, but people are excited. So
Yeah.
I think we've got a massive couple of games coming up. Ross County away to potentially determine whether we have League Cup progression, into St Johnstone away in the first game of the season. So the next 2 games are against 2 sides in our leagues in different competitions that have just came down from the Premiership. I think.
Yeah.
That's going to be the real test of where we're at just now. Come away from those 2 games with cup progression and a league win, and then I'll be on cloud 9, Cam. But we still could be talking about in a couple of weeks that Thistle somehow haven't made it through in the cup and have lost an opening league game. So I'm not getting too high, I'm not getting too low. We'll wait and see what's happening.
Yeah, I think your issue, not specifically you, obviously, but sometimes it feels like the broader Partick Thistle fan base is that as soon as it starts to go well, especially early, it's like, right, okay, we're going to win the league now then, obviously. You know, it's it's like you win a couple of games against lower league teams. It's like, right, okay, well, that's sewn up. Put your bets on now, and it doesn't go well. And it's like, well, I've just lost £100 bet, and it's like, well, why did you do that? You know,
Yeah. No, I get you. It's a difficult one, and I think
it's
one thing,
tough,
and
man.
I'm gonna
Football's tough.
it is tough, you know, and I'm gonna keep on Thistle, but by making a different point here is by looking at Ross County. You know, as you said there, Cam, talking about being impressed with a 2-0 win for Thistle. We go to take on Ross County and Dingwall, who have just won 8-0.
Yeah.
8-0. You know, we spoke about St Mirren beating Annan 8-2. Well, Ross County have won 8-0.
Yeah.
You know, Ronan Hale with a hat trick. How they've still got him, I do not know.
No.
Jay Henderson with a double. I don't actually know who Coyle is.
No.
He's got a double as well. You know, and Phillips as well. I mean, outstanding result for Ross County. Outstanding.
I don't like it.
No, neither do I.
I like it.
It's the thought process that they might just click, you know, and when you look at the team that they've got, if they do click, they're going to be a difficult machine to stop.
Yeah, it's not going to be fun for the rest of us if they are as good as I think they might be. Fingers crossed that's not the case, you know. Yeah, they just can't handle the, you know, really bad passing that everyone has in the championship, and they're expecting everyone to pass really good, but really the passing's so poor that they get caught out. That's my hope.
Yeah. We'll just need to hope that they just can't handle it somehow. But
And somehow
I
can't
mean,
hack it.
what's your opinion? So, you know, Ross County off the back end 8-0 home win. You know, they're hosting Thistle. How do you think that game's going to go at the weekend?
I think it'll be tough. I think it'll be a really tough one for you, obviously. You know, it's like a hard version of going up to Inverness, which was already for you not a great location, was it?
Not really, no. I've seen maybe a win or two, a couple of draws, but yeah, a lot of difficult long trips back down the road from Inverness.
Yeah, can't help but feel it'll be something along those lines. But you never know. You never know. We might be over egging Ross County a little bit, and you know maybe they're not going to be anywhere as near as good as we think that they'll be. We can only hope for that. But it will be certainly an interesting one, being able to see, you know, how you guys managed to fare up against them there. So I'll certainly be having a look and keeping updated with that match as it's going on.
Yeah, definitely. It's not one I'm going to be able to make up to Dingwall, unfortunately, but certainly one that I'm going to be...
It's okay. Everyone expected it. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Long trip? Oh, no. Jack Curry won't be there. He's only a part-timer, you see. That's what
I live in a different country. This is not fair.
That may be.
But,
it doesn't change the facts.
Yeah. Being a host of a Scottish Championship podcast and not making it to any of the first 4 games isn't a great look.
Not even living in the country.
No, we'll move on, listeners.
I'm sure you'd like that.
Well, I think legitimately, because we've spoken about Annan taking a horsing earlier on. We need to speak about it again.
We do.
Arbroath, they went from getting beat 4-0 off of air to bouncing back and winning 6-0 against Annan. You know, Pettifer, who I did Google last night, a new signing, getting on a hat trick for them. Gavin Riley, bit of experience. Hickey Fakacha, we all know about, and Todorov getting his first goal for the club as well. It's very convincing, Cam. There's almost not a huge amount we can see here, but you know, Arbroath bouncing back in style.
Yeah, definitely. Like you say, to go from the poor result that they did have against Ayr to flipping it around, and yes, Annan is obviously not in the same league as Arbroath, but still 6-0 victory is always a good one. The fans will be extremely pleased at watching that, and you know, if, like you say, a few new players there on the score sheet for their new club as well. So yeah, fantastic for Arbroath. They look like they're gelling together, you know, quite nicely. However, as we spoke about earlier in the podcast, they did lose 4-0 to Ayr United, who are obviously in the same league. So, you know, it would be nice for Arbroath to, you know, get a nice victory there, but I don't think we should take too much from some of these big results yet. But you know, I'm saying that if we had won 6-0, so I suppose we did have a big victory and it was pretty good. So maybe I'll just shut up.
Well, the point I was going to ask you about Arbroath, Cam, and I don't know if this is almost too simplistic already, Are Arbroath going to be the case where, Gayfield's going to be a really difficult place to go, and they're going to be good at home, and we just need to write off their away form already?
I don't think we can yet. It certainly could be the case, but it could also be the case of the last time they were in the Championship, where they didn't really have, home or away form. It was just sort of the games that they picked up that wins in here and there, rather than it was obviously all their home games they got their points. It could be the case. It's a strange place to go with the sea breezes and stuff, but I don't think we ever had a particularly hard time in Arbroath. Is the only reason I say that.
I said this stat to somebody in work yesterday, and it's an absolute corker. But any younger listeners might not know this, but Arbroath, Gayfield is the closest ground to the sea in the whole of Europe, which is a fantastic stat. So it really, really does show you how close to the North Sea it is when you literally can see the wave.
Yeah, you can't really see too much. And there's not like a at least at the stadium anyway, like a proper beach or anything. It's all just a bit grim.
I always think there's a big fun fair thing.
There is, which is pretty grim too.
I've never been in, so
no,
I've never been enticed.
No,
never been enticed. But
I love going there though.
Yeah, I love going there. That's what I was going to say. Even though, as you said, it's not maybe Scotland's most prettiest seaside town, it's still one that we all very much look forward to going to.
Yeah.
And sticking with the seaside, as I think I transitioned last week as well. We're going down to Ayr United, and Cam, I already said it, but 3 wins from 3 for Ayr.
Mm-hmm.
This victory again, coming at home again, this time against Forfar Athletic, Dom Thomas, and then George Oakley and Curtis Main again getting in the score sheet. Dom Thomas is, I'm saying we've spoken about him scoring before. It might be his second goal of the League Cup campaign. I should really double check that before I said that there. But what do you make of here, Cam? Maybe it isn't.
They're poo-poo and I hate them.
Well, one thing that really annoyed me as well was the fact that they signed Kevin Holt.
Yes.
Between last week and this week, there's not been too many high-profile signings, I feel as though, in the last week, but he's some addition, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't like the team that they're building. I don't like that Dom Thomas is back. I think, unfortunately for him, he just needs to maybe get injured or something like that. I can't have Ayr United having Dom Thomas score goals against Queen's Park. I just can't. My body cannot handle it.
No. It would be something. But
no.
I suppose for Ayr United, who do you fancy? They're 2 points ahead of St Mirren. It's pretty much the exact same situation that Thistle are in. Compared to their game against Ross County, just obviously Ross County are now in our league. Do you fancy Ayr United to go to St Mirren and get a win, or do you think that it's just going to be a step too far for them and they'll need to gamble that 9 points is going to be enough to see them through in second?
No, I don't think they're. Obviously, you can't rule out the cup shock and all that, but no, I don't think they have enough about them to go to St Mirren and beat St Mirren. Good team, yes, but I think that's just a step too far. Unless, obviously, again, you come back to the potential for upset and stuff like that. They are a good quality team. They're able to score and potentially shut up shop. But no, I'm not realistically thinking that they're going to go there and do the business.
And I think that game's on the telly because it's kicking off on Sunday at 3 o'clock. So that's going to end the League Cup group stage for this season, and it's certainly going to be a tasty one for that to be over in Paisley as well. So, always an interesting one to see how sides in our league get on against a higher opposition. So definitely going to keep an eye out and see how Ayr get on ahead into the league action, Cam. But we've already spoken about Dunfermline, so we'll just kind of sort of touch on them here again. But another win. This one's slightly less convincing, but coming against Hamilton Accies. And what I must say, if I were just to talk about Hamilton Accies for a second, given their financial problems when I seen their squad, I was amazed to see some of the players that they've kept a hold of. Ollie Shaw, Kevin O'Hara, Scott Robinson, Connor Smith, Leco Day. So, certainly, if they can keep that squad together, certainly need to fancy them to make an immediate bounce back to the Scottish Championship. But I suppose we're not here to talk about Hamilton. We're here just to talk about Dunfermline.
Yes.
What do you make? What do you make of that result for Dunfermline? Going into their last game, which leaves them, 2 wins from 3, and looking to try and see if they can finish probably in second place behind Hearts.
Yeah, well, I think obviously as the championship team, they'll be looking at trying to qualify out their group where possible, and they'll need to finish second place. They'll need to get the points where they can. It looks like they were let off a little bit. Now I've not seen the highlights, so I don't know, but obviously Hamilton has equalised through Ollie Shaw in the 69th minute before Lico Day then scores an own goal in the 70th minute to give Dunfermline the lead back again. So I would like to maybe go back and see what went on there, whether they were gifted the victory back or whether it's just one of these technicality own goals. But yeah, let off, got the victory in the end, 3 points. And it certainly puts them in a good position, doesn't it, to progress on through. But one of those ones where they're not going to be progressing through in first, so you just have to wait to see how all the games end up panning out in that last day of the season, or last game of the game groups. So yeah, well done to Dunfermline on getting all the points they've gotten so far, putting them in a good position. We'll see how it all turns out.
Yeah, definitely. As you said, it's going to be an interesting one for the Pars, and they'll probably, if they win the last game, need to keep their fingers crossed, because it might be a few teams all finishing on 9 points, so might end up going down to goal difference. So yeah, certainly going to be an interesting one there. But we already had a taster, of two sides in the league playing against each other when we spoke about Ayr against Arbroath earlier on, Cam.
It's true.
It happened again at McDermott Park, St Johnstone taking on Wraith, and what is probably a closer match on paper compared to Ayr United and Arbroath, and St Johnstone coming out what looks to be pretty comfortable 3-1 winners there. What did you make of that, just on the kind of outset? And where would you kind of put Wraith Rovers and St Johnstone at this stage of the season?
I don't know. It's hard to say. Obviously, St Johnstone being the team coming down, I didn't really watch too much Premier League football. I can't even confirm whether I'd maybe even seen a single St Johnstone game last year. So I don't know what they were like last year to be able to compare, the players that they've lost and the players that they've gained and stuff. But they seem to have been doing the business so far, which I suppose is the main thing to actually look at. They've been winning the games, they've been scoring some goals, and they've been doing it, obviously, in this instance against Wraith Rovers, a team that they will be playing a few more times this season. So to go out and fairly comfortably win 3-1, I think, they'll be looking at that fairly happily. And Wraith Rovers, I think, will be quite rightly quite annoyed at the way that game has panned out for them. Not a good marker for them going into this new season anyway.
No, and I think especially not a good marker for Wraith Rovers when you think about the previous result against East Kilbride. Where they were in pole position with just minutes left, and a John Robertson hat trick in the space of injury time pretty much turned things around. So it's back-to-back defeats, it's back-to-back disappointment for Wraith Rovers, and not two games that you would expect them to win, although you would obviously expect them to beat East Kilbride. But the Wraith Rovers fans would have been expecting to go to St Johnstone, a team in the same league, and really show them what they're about. And it's not a good marker for Wraith Rovers to put down at this point in the season. So, we kind of said last year, Cam, if there was just one or two more games in the season, Wraith Rovers probably would have made it into the playoff spot last season, and they had a wee bit of momentum. But that kind of seems to have gone now.
It does a little bit, doesn't it? It does look like the sort of that wee spark has fizzled a wee bit. Obviously, I don't like to put too much onto the League Cup group games as pre-season. I know we talked about earlier on, it is still a cup, but with that pre-season element of it, it does more often than not throw up some strange results, and teams not getting the wins that they maybe you'd expect them to on paper. So I don't think Wraith Rovers will be looking too deeply into it, but they'll be certainly picking up all the the failings that they've noticed in their games so far, and they'll be looking at that, and they'll be trying to work out what they could be doing better and how they could have potentially done better in various situations. So even though they're not going to be progressing, they'll certainly have stuff to take from the competition so far, and potentially put that down into improved league position and performances. So we'll see as the season progresses whether Wraith Rovers do learn from any of their mistakes there.
Yeah, and they've got one final game against Inverness at home and St Johnstone, taking on the whipping boys of the group, Elgin City at home. So you probably would expect 2 home victories from that. But with Rovers just now, I suppose anything could certainly happen. So we'll keep an eye on that there, Cam, and we'll go on to Morton. Sitting in second place in Group G just now. They've had a decent-ish start to the cup campaign, although we're going to need to talk about a 3-0 defeat they suffered at the hands of Premiership Motherwell. It's a difficult one, you don't want to criticise them too much. Yeah. It happens. I don't know if you saw the second goal scored by Maswanisi by Motherwell, but it was an absolute world day. Just kind of cut in from the the left wing on his right foot, maybe a good 25 yards out, and that way he just curled it in the camera angle. Perfectly picked it up as it bent outside the post back in, and it was an absolutely excellent strike. He's a really exciting player to watch, Maswanisi. So as you said, there's no shame in Morton coming away there. They've done what they've had to do so far. 2 wins from 2 against lower league opposition, and they've came up stuck against Premiership side, and 1 match left in the cup group stages for them at home against Clyde, and there's still the potential that they could finish this group on 9 points.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's obviously the key. Like you say, you've highlighted it a few times. There's looking to be a few teams finishing on 9 points. So you've got to imagine that that's going to be the magic number, and beyond that, it's obviously going to be looking at goal difference. So all the teams that are potentially looking at finishing this group on 9 points, got to start now looking at the goal difference, and got to start looking at what your rivals, the amount of goals they're putting away, because it is going to be important there. Like we've mentioned, only the top 3 second place teams will be going through. So yeah, I think there's got to be at least 3 teams that are going to be on 9 points, haven't you got to say?
Yeah, exactly. I think there's going to be maybe a few mathematicians, trying to work out, scores and goal differences and what it might mean.
It's not for me.
That kind of stuff I can never really get my head around at the time, but I love the excitement of it all. So there it could be at least 3 or 4 teams all finishing on the same amount of points, and it could come down to just one side missing out by a goal, potentially, and going through. So we just all need to hope that whoever listening, it's not your side that misses out, because ultimately there can only be 3 that progress in second place.
It's true. Yeah, there's only so many points up for grabs and so many places available. So we've obviously got a bunch of games coming up this week, the final games of the League Cup group stages. So by the time we roll round for the podcast next week, we will have the answer to all these questions. We'll know who's through. We'll know well, we might not necessarily, the draw might not have happened, we might not know who they're playing yet, but we certainly know who's going to be through, who's going to be taking home all the plaudits for the group stage. So yeah, that'll be something to look forward to. Obviously the games coming up, we've touched on them here and there throughout, but obviously Queen's Park, my team, we are at home to Cove Rangers, so we did actually initially talk, Jack, about doing hospitality for it, but I think we ended up just maybe leaving it a bit too late and missing out on the opportunity. It was all full, so we are going to go out and we're going to have some food and some drinks and stuff like that, but it's going to be non-hospitality related. It's going to be Bucks Bar.
A bit of chicken.
That's it.
A bit of chicken in there for you. We've always got a bit of a debate about Bucks Bar.
We do, yeah. Which
I'm not a fan.
Yeah, I thought it was weird.
I've just listeners, watchers. I've just had bad experiences twice at Bucks Bar. Never enjoyed it. So if you've got your pitchforks out, you can let us know what your opinion is on Bucks Bar and whether you like it or not. But I certainly seem to be in the minority in life. People that
it's just good chicken. It's good chicken. What's the problem?
I love chicken.
So I know, exactly. It's my problem.
There shouldn't be a problem. That's the thing. So I'm much more of a Black Rooster guy myself. So. Yeah, McKennedy's chicken for the one.
You're moving from Partick Thistle to Disco Bride, then, eh?
Oh, God.
You love it?
Can't sense your time after mine.
Yeah, you're off Disco Bride, mate. Off to K Park.
I don't like the sound of that.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll only cut this season, because then it means I can tick the ground off my list. So
That's true. Yeah, there you go.
that'd be good.
Hmm.
But yeah, so you've got a wee trip to Leicester this week, Kim.
That's it, mate. That's it. Very excited. Very excited. It's the first one where I go to football with like my brother and stuff, so they've all been on holiday. So we're all going to be back. We're all going this weekend. We've got cousins and stuff coming up. So yeah, it's going to be a good one.
It's going to be Queen's Park's record attendance falling out there.
You're right. Except,
So
unfortunately, our average attendance from last year is more than our current capacity.
yeah, that's just not sustainable, which we'll touch on at some point in the season
I'm
properly, I'm sure. But next week, Cam, is going to be so exciting.
Yes.
Because it's going to be prediction time, listeners. Not only is it going to be league predictions, but it's going to be score predictions as well. So, everybody, fair warning. You've got a week to get your predictions sorted. You need to message us, you need to email us, you need to let us know, because we want to compare everybody's predictions, and we will definitely talk about them if you send them in. So definitely do that, and you can play along at home, Maker.
I have a full team of analysts working around the clock for the last 3 weeks, trying to get everything in order as to what's gonna be happening, and my predictions are gonna be spot on.
No, so I need to up my game, is what you're saying.
That's it. If you don't have a team of at least 20 analysts working around the clock, looking at every minute detail, then you're doing it wrong.
Well, it's just going to be even better when I beat you this year.
Maybe. You just have to wait and see.
Perhaps. But I think that's where we leave this week, Cam, don't you?
I agree. It's been a very slightly shorter than usual. I'll just give you the heads up now, Jack. Sub 1 hour for the first time, and I don't know how long, but
Oof.
I think you're right. It's been a shorter week. Not too much has happened, just some League Cup games. There's no predictions, there's no that. So we'll leave this with the anticipation of next week.
I'm excited already.
That's it. Right, everyone, thank you very much for watching and for listening, and we'll catch you all again next week.
See you later, guys. Have a good one.
Bye.